In Cumberland County, North Carolina, between 1969 and 1978, 6 people died under eerily similar circumstances: crippling stomach pain, relentless vomiting, and death within days. Each victim was linked by one seemingly innocent figure, a soft-spoken, church-going grandmother named Velma Barfield, whose gentle presence and whispered prayers comforted those around her during tragedy. The deaths were chalked up to heart failure, gastroenteritis, or accidents, common enough in rural communities that no one suspected the woman who volunteered at church and cared for the elderly. But in 1978, when 56-year-old Stuart Taylor collapsed at a Pentecostal revival meeting, his family's refusal to accept another mysterious death led to an autopsy that exposed Velma as a cunning serial killer, ultimately making her the first woman executed by lethal injection in U.S. history. Investigators discovered she used rat poison, administered with chilling precision, turning caregiving into a deadly art. The North Carolina of the 1960s and 1970s was a place where trust bound communities together. In small towns like Parkton and Fayetteville, neighbors knew each other's lives intimately. Church was a cornerstone, not just for worship, but for social connection, and the idea of a grandmother as a killer was unthinkable. Parkton, with fewer than 500 residents, was a quiet farming community where tobacco and cotton fields stretched toward pine horizons. The Baptist church was the heart of social life. High school basketball games drew crowds, and a person's word was as good as a contract. General stores doubled as gathering spots where locals swapped stories over coffee. Margie Velma Bullard was born on October 29, 1932, in Eastover, South Carolina, but raised near Fayetteville as the eldest daughter among 9 siblings. The Bullard family worked a modest farm, living a hard but honest life without electricity or running water. Pentecostal Christian values shaped their household. Daily prayers, church attendance, and strict moral codes were non-negotiable. Poverty was common, and the family used the woods behind their home for necessities, a practical reality in rural areas. Despite these challenges, Velma excelled in school, her knack for reading and writing earning praise from teachers who noted her quiet intelligence and helpfulness. Her report cards hinted at academic potential, a rare bright spot in her family's struggles. As a teenager at Parkton Public School, Velma discovered basketball, her quick reflexes and game sense making her a standout despite her slight frame. The sport was a rare escape from home responsibilities, but when her mother, Lily, gave birth to twins, Velma was forced to quit the team to help with chores and childcare. The loss crushed her, fueling frustration with her family's demands. During this time, she met Thomas Burke, a kind, lanky boy whose humor and gentleness contrasted with her father's sternness. Their courtship, confined to school grounds due to her father's strict rules, deepened through stolen moments and church encounters. Even at 16, her father deemed her too young for serious dating, pushing Velma and Thomas toward elopement. At 17, seeing marriage as her path to freedom, Velma wed Thomas in 1949 in a quiet ceremony at a neighboring county's Justice of the Peace. The couple settled in a modest Parkton home, a symbol of new beginnings. Early years were happy, with Velma embracing her role as homemaker and mother, dreaming of a stable family. But in 1965, a car accident changed everything. Thomas, injured on a rain-slicked road while commuting from a textile mill, suffered a severe concussion and chronic pain. He returned to work briefly, but debilitating headaches cost him his job, plunging the family into financial strain. With limited medical options, Thomas turned to alcohol, his dependency growing as the pain persisted. For Velma, raised to view alcohol as a sin, this was a betrayal of their marriage's foundation. She monitored his drinking obsessively, searching for hidden bottles and enlisting their children to watch him, turning their home into a battleground of resentment. Thomas, humiliated by his unemployment and pain, felt betrayed by Velma's control. Velma, watching her husband unravel, feared for their future. In a desperate move, she had him committed to Dorothea Dix Hospital for alcoholism treatment without his consent, a decision that shattered their trust. While he was away, Velma worked grueling mill shifts to support the family, turning to Valium to cope with stress. Her dependency grew, and she sought more prescriptions from multiple doctors. When Thomas returned sober but bitter, their marriage was a shell, marked by arguments over money and his joblessness. On April 4, 1969, the tension reached a deadly peak. Thomas, groggy from drinking, was alone when Velma left with their children for vague errands unusual for her, especially at night. Hours later, they returned to find their home engulfed in flames. The fire, deemed accidental by deputies with limited forensic training, was blamed on Thomas falling asleep with a cigarette. He died of smoke inhalation, a small mercy. Velma's grief seemed genuine. She wept uncontrollably and was restrained from entering the blaze. At the funeral, she spoke movingly of Thomas's struggles, earning community sympathy. But neighbors noted she had removed valuables, photos, documents, jewelry. Days before, and a second fire on the lot months later triggered an insurance payout. Combined with Thomas's life insurance and donations, Velma gained financial security she'd never known. Unbeknownst to Parkton, Velma had discovered murder's utility. Staging Thomas's death as an accident solved her problems while garnering sympathy and money. Within 6 months, she pursued Jennings Barfield, a wealthy widower known for integrity. Her intensity, attending his events, bringing gifts, seemed predatory to some. Jennings, drawn to her domestic skills and faith, married her in August 1970. Velma managed his household meticulously, but her escalating drug use, now a cocktail of antidepressants, painkillers, and sedatives, outstripped her budget. She began forging checks from Jennings's accounts, her methods sophisticated, small amounts spaced transactions, and a flawless imitation of his signature. In early 1971, Jennings's banker noticed irregularities, leading to a confrontation. Jennings, strong-willed, threatened divorce and legal action. On March 22, 1971, he suffered sudden stomach pain and vomiting after dinner. Velma rushed him to the hospital, where doctors, unable to pinpoint a cause, diagnosed heart failure. He died the next morning. Velma's grief seemed profound, but his death, timed just before he could act on his threats, left her with a substantial inheritance. She moved to Fayetteville, claiming a need for family support, but had perfected a method, arsenic poisoning that mimicked natural illness. Near her aging parents, Velma targeted her mother, Lillian, who relied on her for daily tasks. Velma forged checks and loans from Lillian's accounts, starting small but growing bold as her drug needs increased. By 1974, Lillian suffered mysterious illnesses, cramping, nausea, diarrhea, that vanished quickly. Velma, always present with healing teas, was experimenting with arsenic dosages. When bank audits loomed in December 1974, Lillian's worst episode struck during a holiday gathering. Velma rushed her to Cape Fear Valley Hospital, where she died on December 30 of gastroenteritis. Velma's grief convinced all, and Lillian's estate secured her thefts. In 1975, Velma's reckless forgery led to a 6-month prison sentence. Rather than reforming, she learned advanced criminal techniques from inmates, emerging after 3 months convinced violent crime was safer. In 1976, she was hired to care for Montgomery and Dolly Edwards, a wealthy, isolated elderly couple in Lumberton. Velma won their trust, forging checks until Montgomery's natural death in January 1977. When Dolly questioned missing funds, she died of arsenic poisoning on March 1, 1977, her death deemed natural. Velma then cared for John Henry Lee and his wife, Record. John Henry, alert but trusting, became her next target. When he grew suspicious of financial discrepancies, he succumbed to arsenic on June 4, 1977. Velma's care during his illness earned praise, masking her motive. By late 1977, she began a relationship with Stuart Taylor, a 56-year-old tobacco farmer. Unlike her elderly victims, Stuart was healthy and not wealthy, offering emotional stability rather than financial gain. But Velma's drug costs drove her to forge his checks. When his banker noticed irregularities in January 1978, Stuart confronted her, threatening legal action. That night, at a Pentecostal revival, Stuart collapsed with nausea and pain. Velma's attentive care seemed devoted, but over 3 days his condition worsened. He died on February 3, 1978, of supposed gastroenteritis. Stuart's family, suspicious due to his health and recent discoveries, demanded an autopsy, which revealed lethal arsenic levels. Velma's sister, harboring doubts, alerted police, leading to Velma's arrest on March 28, 1978. Under interrogation, Velma confessed to poisoning Stuart, Lillian, Dolly, and John Henry, claiming accidental overdoses to buy time for replacing stolen funds. Investigators, skeptical of her remorse, found evidence of premeditation. Jennings's exhumed body confirmed arsenic, though Velma denied involvement in his and Thomas's deaths. Her trial in November 1978, moved to Bladen County, was a media sensation. The prosecution detailed her theft, murder pattern, while the defense cited drug addiction and alleged past abuse, even suggesting dissociative identity disorder. The jury, unconvinced, found her guilty of first-degree murder in under an hour, recommending death. On December 2, 1978, Velma was sentenced to death. Appeals lasted 6 years, but her apparent religious conversion on death row, leading Bible studies and counseling inmate, gained supporters, including Billy Graham. Victims' families, unmoved, demanded justice. Governor Jim Hunt denied clemency, and on November 2, 1984, Velma was executed by lethal injection, the first woman in U.S. history to face this fate. Her final words expressed regret, and her simple last meal, cheese doodles and coca-cola, belied her calculated crimes.